Welcome to Hidden Truth Transgender Movement. You're going to see an excerpt of an interview with Walt Heyer. Walt was a man who was married and had children, but could not deny his urge to transition to a woman. He had full medical surgery to transition to a woman, only to wind up homeless, living out in the streets, and then coming to the realization that he'd made a huge mistake. He transitioned back and now lives as a man. He's the author of Gender, Lies, and Suicide. A Whistleblower Speaks Out. He calls gender reassignment surgery a medical fraud. If you enjoy this excerpt, go check out the podcast, Hidden Truth Show, Transgender Movement, wherever you listen to podcasts.
One of the biggest movements in the whole transgender industry today is detransitioning. And if you Google detransition, you'll see that there are numerous websites, including mine, where people are helping people detransition, because the surgery, while it may quiet the head, the radio in the head for a while, it does not resolve the issues that the person is dealing with, which is sometimes body dysmorphic disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, dissociative disorders. And so what we found today is that a vast number, we know that 20% from studies, 20% of the people regret having done it. That was a study done in the UK, published by the UK Guardian. We know that over 40% of them attempt suicide, and I don't know anybody who's happy with their life after changing genders that is trying everything they can to take their life. That's because they're unhappy and regretful. So the fact of the matter is that it is not a solution. Changing genders, cutting off your genitalia, and taking hormones is a deadly track to attempted suicides, regret, and detransitioning.
But what the LGBT community or activists or leaders, et cetera, would say is that it is because society is not accepting.
That is an absolute, total fabrication of the truth. The fact of the matter is, it's because the people are struggling with a tormented life and they're not able to get the proper psychotherapy and diagnosis they need to deal with the disorders that cause them to change genders. And I know this from the people that I work with.
So you believe that it's psychological issues that caused the dysphoria?
It's either emotional, psychological, or social.
And what are the types of causes of it, in your view?
Not in my view. From the people I work with, over 40% of them have been sexually abused. Many of them have been physically abused. Many of them have been abandoned, in foster care.
To be clear, we're talking about as children.
As children.
And what's kind of the age range of that?
Usually between the ages of 3 and 15.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's 40%, based on your personal experience. I'm
just saying 40% of them were sexually abused.
Yes.
An additional percentage of them were emotionally abused. Another percentage of them were abandoned or had family difficulties, or there was a massive divorce, or they were in foster care. So 100% of them suffered some. Every person that I've worked with who's detransitioning can tell me without a doubt the precise thing that happened to them that caused them to not want to be who they are and spend their time trying to become someone who they can never be. 100%.
Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that want to detransition. What about ones that have transitioned and now don't seek to detransition?
Well, I've had people write me and say, you were never a true transgender and you should take down your website. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just an old man. And that one of those individuals wrote me over a 4-year period of time until last September, wrote me an email and said, I'm the one that's been writing you and telling you to take down your website. Can you help me detransition? So I don't know that. I know that people who have written me from 3 weeks to 30 years have regret. I've had 2 people after 30 years have regret. So from my position, I don't know anybody yet who is. I just talked to somebody in New Zealand just 2 days ago about this. People, after a period of time, have regret about changing gender. Some of them will detransition, some of them will attempt suicide, some of them will just live the way they are in regret. It's not a solution to the issues that cause them to change their genders.
Do you think that there could be a version of dysphoria where it is the right treatment for, that there's some percentage where it is the right remedy?
I think the people who are homosexual, which is a small percentage, may be the ones who benefit the most from it. There are things like, as an example, autogynephilia, which is misdiagnosed as being transgender. Those people typically will have deep regret. There's people that are what we call transvestic fetish. Those people who are diagnosed as transgender will have regret. There are people who are just mere cross-dressers that will have regret because they're really not transgender. If you want to get right down to the nitty-gritty, transgenders as a term, as a person, don't exist, and no one can even prove today that transgenders do, beyond the fact that somebody identifies as transgender. There's no testing, there's no proof that the brain is different, except in the cadavers that they test after they've been on hormones for 10 or 12 years and they died and they test their brain. Yes, hormones will change your brain after 10 or 12 years. So I don't know of anybody who's actually a true transgender. There are in the range of transgenders, you have drag queens, transvestite fetishes, autogynephilia, and people who've been abused or had difficulty in their life.
If you want to hear the rest of that very compelling interview with Walt Heyer, check out Hidden Truth Show Podcast. That's Hidden Truth Show Podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for watching. I'm Jim Breslow.